My son M22 cut contact with me, 43F, 4 years ago due to getting involved with his friend, M22. He contacted me 2 days ago and wants to meet up this Friday. Note, I understand that coming on this subreddit made me open to criticism. I know, I'll be judged. But, I am here to learn how to improve the situation. I had my son at the age of 21 years old. His father passed away 2 years later. So it was me and my son against the world. When it came to my dating life, I haven't been so lucky. I did have some random hookups here and there and very short-term relationships throughout my son's childhood. In the beginning of my son's senior year, he brought a friend home. Let's call him Max. He was basically at our house every other weekend. I was really happy because my son doesn't have a lot of friends. He usually keeps to himself. I really liked Max as a person. He was a real sweet guy. We had have nice, short conversations whenever he was at our place. We exchanged number just in case. He would start sending me messages and jokes. I would respond back. My son didn't mind at all. After 4 months of coming to our house, Max texts me he wants to meet up for coffee out of nowhere. I texted him if it was something urgent or about my son. He responded by saying it's something important. I was curious, so I decided to meet up with him. When I met up with him, he looked very nervous. I asked him what was the meeting about. He told me I can't tell my son about it. He then confessed to me that he was developing feelings for me. I was taken aback by this. I told him that while I was flattered, I had to think about my son. He pleaded with me to just give him a chance. It was so long that I found somebody interested in me like that. Max was already 18 when he was introduced to me and he was a very handsome man. I said yes, but with the condition that it would be only casual dating and my son doesn't have to know about it. We met up the next week at his place. I told my son I was going out with my friends L. After an hour into the date, we slept with each other. Then we promised to meet up in the close future. Our meetups became very frequent, and as such, our relationship grew stronger. I was beginning to fall in love with Max. We learned more about each other. Max was becoming my main source of joy. I wanted the weekend to start early just to be with Max. It was hard for me to pay attention to anything else in my life. Looking back, it seems that my relationship with Max had a negative effect on the relationship with my son. I had to come up with different excuses on why I wasn't around. I missed out on his soccer games. I think I really messed up when I missed his birthday dinner because I was with Max. I told him that work held me up. It was a week before my son's flight to college that I got a text from Max that my son found out about us. I got it in the middle of work. I was scared to go back home. When my son arrived home, he never uttered a word about the situation. He just pretended that nothing ever happened. He seemed very cold to me, never looked at me in the eye and gave one-word responses. When it came to dropping him off, he didn't even give me a hug or even looked back at me when it was time for the flight to even wave goodbye. When I drove back home, Max's car was in my driveway. It was the first time I saw him ever since I got that text from him. I saw he had a black eye and a broken nose when he stepped out of his car. We hugged each other tightly. I cried in his arms. Once we stepped in my house, I told him how bad I felt to what I did to my son. The worst part, I wasn't sad my son was leaving but relieved instead. Max comforted me in saying he's just as much at fault for this situation. Max stayed that night. The next day, he proposed to me. I accepted. It's been 4 years now. Max and I have a 2-year-old daughter. He works as a mechanic. The airport was the last time I saw my son. He blocked me on everything. I asked his grandparents if he ever contacted them. His grandfather told me that my son told them everything. He said he will take care of my son, but he told me to never contact my son or them again. 2 days ago, I got a call from my son that he's going to be in town and he wants to meet up in person this Friday. I said yes. What should I do or say when I meet him? I went to meet up with my son without Max or my daughter. It was at a local coffee shop. I found him sitting in one of the booths, on his phone. I was really scared. A part of me wanted to tackle him with a hug and beg for his forgiveness. Another part of me wanted to leave before he noticed me. I said his name to get his attention. He didn't even leave his seat. He just looked at me and said hi. I asked if I could sit. I started asking about how he was doing. He said he was fine. I was about to apologize, but he interrupted me by saying, "Before you apologize, I want to understand how the relationship between Max and you even started." I started telling him everything. When it came to mentioning my meetups, he interjected and started asking me difficult questions. He asked, "So all the times that you were going out, you were lying to me about where you were going, weren't you?" I nodded. "What about the times I asked to spend time with you? Did you lie to me so you could meet up with Max instead?" I started tearing up. It was hard being there. "Did you miss out on events to be with Max? What about my birthday?" That's when I started crying. He told me to save my tears. He said he had figured it out soon after he learned about the relationship with Max. He just wanted to hear it from me. He then asked me if I was still with Max. I told him I was married to him and I have a daughter with him. He seemed to need a minute to process that. Then he started speaking. He told me he never had an issue with me dating or meeting someone. In fact, he hoped I found love. He understood that I needed companionship and a type of love he couldn't offer as his son. He told me throughout all these years he felt conflicted because both Max and I were both consenting adults and adults have a right to find happiness. My son admitted he shouldn't have hit Max and was glad he didn't press charges. He said despite all of that, there were some things that he couldn't get over. He told me he couldn't get over the fact that I didn't take him into consideration when it came to pursuing the relationship. It was also hurtful to realize that I valued a romantic relationship to the point of being willing to throw away a close relationship with him for it. If I had the attitude of being done raising him and finally pursuing my own life, then that was valid, according to him. However, I would have no right to want to have a close relationship with him in return. Again, that's what he believed. He told me he wouldn't have forgotten me when he left for college. He would have wanted me to move close to him after he got a job if he couldn't move close to me. He said he loved himself and his life too much to have me back in his life. My son said he works as a mechanical engineer now. He is engaged to the love of his life. She was also raised by a single mom like him until her stepdad came into the picture when she was 16. Both of them have welcomed him into the family. He told me his future in-laws and his fiancée are his family now. He said he was getting a job near them. He finally admitted that he just wanted closure before permanently cutting me off. He told me not to contact him or his family at all. He made it clear he wouldn't be there for me at my last stage of life or even come to my funeral. He made it clear he wouldn't even hold my hand when I pass away. I won't have the privilege of knowing his fiancée or his future kids. He made it clear that if his half-sister ever contacts him as an adult, he'll be upfront about why he doesn't want a relationship with her. He said goodbye to me and left. I cried so hard that I got the attention of the people in the coffee shop. I was crying on the way back home. I don't even know how therapy can help. I've never felt so much emotional pain in my life before. What do I do now?